Finally, my life is so busy. The meeting is being recorded by a podcast. Okay.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Women's Fittest podcast. My guest today is Ivana Ivusic Wilkin. She is an IFBB Pro, a figure IFBB Pro, and Olympian. And I'm so excited to finally have you on the podcast. How are you doing?
Good. I'm so excited. I know we finally made it happen.
It's so great. It's so great. I know you're so busy, so I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. So usually I get started with asking people about their background. You know, I love epigenetics. There's so many women in bodybuilding who have a great athletic background starting from when they were a kid. So what did you do for sports growing up? And then how did that transition into bodybuilding?
Sure. I mean, growing up, I was such a tomboy. I was always so active, but I ran track in high school and I played soccer for 4 years. And then honestly, once college came around immediately after high school is when I found bodybuilding. So I was in that transition. It's like, do I play college sport? How would that look for me? And you know, what my life background was. And just so ironically, my brothers went to their first competition just to watch a friend compete. And from there that was my freshman year of college. And from there, I've been doing this for over 10 years.
Oh my goodness.
So I'm like, where has the time gone? I'm not sure.
What?
So yeah, it was a quick, it wasn't like, you know, I played college sports and then got into it because I wanted something. So it just really came naturally.
Yeah. So you went to that first show. What year was that? And what show was that?
Actually, my twin brother and my older brother went to the show, and that was in 2011.
Okay.
And it was a small local show in Iowa, in Davenport, Iowa. And they went to see a friend compete. They came back, they're like, there's girls in heels, they're in bikinis, so they have muscle and they're doing this stuff on stage. I'm like, no. So then I said yes.
That's awesome. You know, that's kind of the year that things really started to change with bodybuilding because
Sure.
It was the birth of a lot of the new divisions were coming up in the beginning of that decade. So you were already at the gym. Did you hire a coach? When was the first time that you stepped on stage? How did that work out?
No, actually, I never had a coach. At that time, I did my first show. I was literally eating raw eggs every single morning and eating spinach, not cooked, just like out of the bag. So, but yeah, I trained myself for my very first show. My brother actually competed as well for a while there. So we kind of just guided each other along the way. And, you know, I actually went pro by myself. I remember that when I went to nationals, that was when it was in Fort Lauderdale. It was actually the last year that they had it in Fort Lauderdale. And I remember when they gave me my pro card, I didn't even know what it meant. I didn't even know what the IFBB stood for. I had no idea. I just knew that I loved weightlifting and it was so much excitement back then about it because no one did it. And I was the only professional athlete in the state of Iowa when we lived in Iowa. So it was just so much excitement. I mean, for anybody starting out, it's very exciting, but now there's just so many different resources. But I think even back then, like trying to figure it out was more special than now. It's like you have all the answers before you do your first show. But back then it was such a learning process and I really enjoyed that part of it.
That's so cool. Yeah, you're right. It was a lot of us just figuring stuff out. And that was the beginning of social media too. Did you have an Instagram at the time?
No, I did not.
I
did not. I had a Facebook and that was it. I never had a MySpace either. So I was never after that. But now when I go back and look at old photos, I'm like, oh my gosh, so much has changed. And, you know, and social media now is, you know, it can be a great thing and it can also be a little bit of a negative thing. And it can, you know, so I think back then, like you weren't distracted. You had no idea who your competition was or how they looked. You just kind of went along with it.
Yeah, absolutely. So that first show that you did you compete in figure or did you compete in bikini? And what was that experience like?
Well, let's start with, no, I always compete in figure, but actually, girl, I made my own suit. I went to Walmart and I jeweled that whole thing. I still have it to this day. So that tells you a little bit about that. But so no, really it was all just me one day at a time, trying to figure out what was going on, trying to wear heels and do poses. And, and honestly, like I said, there was nobody else around to help me. And especially in the state of Iowa. So it was just like, you go to a show and you see how they pose, and then you try and guess and reenact the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Bodybuilding in the Midwest, we're always like kind of the last.
Definitely
for everything. So, when was that first time that you stepped on stage? Do you remember what year that was?
Sure. Yeah. In 2012.
2012. And then, how long before you got your pro card?
I competed in 2012 and I won my class. And I remember the girl that won the overall went to junior nationals next weekend, and she went pro out of Omaha. And then after that, I went to nationals and I went pro.
Wow.
So it was a really fast turnaround time.
So yeah. Were you then starting to realize like some of who the other people were and having this goal of the Olympia, or, where did your mind kind of go when you started to continue to do well?
Honestly, once I started, it was all gas. Like it was just go, go, go. Like, keep trying. And my very first, I did 2 pro shows, and then I think it was my 3rd pro show. I qualified for the Olympia, and I was like, I was a baby. Oh my gosh. That was in 2015, I want to say.
Okay. That's so crazy. Does it blow your mind that that's like everybody's dream, right? Once they get involved in bodybuilding, and then here you are qualified for the Olympia. How many times have you stepped on the Olympia stage now?
5 times. 5 times. Yep. And these last 2 years have just been kind of, my husband now is, and we'll get into all of that, but yeah, my husband now, of course, he's competing. And so it's like, I'm really trying to give him everything that he gave me back then when he wasn't competing. So, it's been really an interesting process.
How long have you guys been together? And, for people who don't know, your husband, Wilkin, who has had a great year this past year as well. It's been incredible for him.
Yeah. We have been together for 8 years.
Okay.
Been married for 4.5 years.
Okay.
So it's been quite a while. Yeah.
Did bodybuilding, like the gym, bring you guys together?
Kind of, honestly, he had always been training, lifting, but never thinking about a show or anything like that. It wasn't until like 2 or 3 years into our relationship that he had decided to do a show. But I do remember getting ready for the Chicago Pro for my first pro show, and like being embarrassed to eat in front of him because he'd eat like twice a day. So he just had a really cool feature on MD, and I was reading the article and I was like, wow, I'm in this. And he's like, yeah, my wife taught me how to eat. Yeah. So I do take credit for that. I don't take credit for the 100 pounds that he's gained, but I take credit for him eating better.
Nice. So when did you start investing in a coach and stop doing this yourself?
It was probably about a year after I went pro.
Okay.
And back then it was just kind of like word of mouth, like this is so-and-so, work with them, or they're working with this person. So I had met a coach out in California that I worked with briefly.
Okay. And then
it was just from there, it was all about making connections, and then social media kind of got bigger. And I was really fortunate enough to be like really close with John Meadows. That was like my father. So he had played a huge role in my career and was one of the best coaches I've ever had, and was absolutely phenomenal. So, from there you just kind of met people, and you kind of, like I always say to young athletes, who are just getting into all of this, looking for a coach, you really need someone that you connect with and that you can have a very honest and open relationship with. Because, people struggle with a lot of things nowadays. And I think it's so important to speak the truth so that both people are aware. And you need someone that's very compassionate and loving, not just your coach and that's it. It's like there has to be a relationship that forms between the athlete and the coach. The trusting part is really big for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I think women especially need kind of someone who's a little bit more nurturing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
we all need nurturing, guy or girl, it doesn't matter. We all need it.
You probably know better than I do. I don't I don't have a significant other, so I don't really think about that aspect too much. My daughter's female, so I don't think about it as much of what guys need. So
yeah, they're babies, you know that. Yeah, we all know that.
so great. Well, I do want to say, about John, I don't think that there's been an episode of the podcast previous to his passing that I have not mentioned something that I've learned about him that came up in conversation. And he was just such an amazing person, and I'm very sorry for your loss.
Thank you so much. Yeah, he was the most empowering human being I've ever had in my life. I mean, it didn't matter if you just came off the street and he was training you. He made you believe that you were on top of the world. Yeah. And I think we need a lot more of that. And it's nice for you to say that, because I've heard so many people go back and forth. Like, I cried. I didn't know. I'm only watching through videos, because he truly loved people and wanted to see everybody successful, and just was so proud of you, even if you sucked. He was remarkable. So
yeah, and provided so much good information. Like I said, there was stuff would come to mind all the time just when I was, just doing these interviews, and I'd be like, this is what John Meadows would do, or this is what John Meadows said. It just tied in everywhere. And his content is still available, which is incredible for everybody.
Yeah. Actually, to all the listeners out here that, still want to be a part of what, everything that John left behind, we are still, I'm going to be doing a lot of the workouts from his program, and we're going to be sharing that. They're still selling his programs, because he had written so many programs, and there were so many programs that were supposed to be launched before his passing. So they've come together. I just spoke with his wife a few days ago, and they're still launching all the programs and just getting more of the athletes that, stood behind him for many years to continue his legacy and his form of training, which was crazy training.
Yeah. But it had such a great style to it. I always tell people, when they're getting started too, about those 4 aspects, that is just a great base for any program to, have an activator, have a pump, or have a compound, have a pump, and then a stretch, those 4 principles.
Yes. Oh, I know those principles. Like, I am not stretching after this workout, John. There's no way. Yeah, you are.
Yeah. So great. So great. So, who are you working with now? Who's helping you? Did you find somebody to be that person for you?
So I worked with Nelson Jones this past year. And right now in my life, we have so much going on with, finally, after so many years, my husband and I have truly found a great sponsor that we are 100% behind the company. Hostile has been absolutely life-changing for us, because, when you go back and forth, it's not about selling products. It's about using the products yourself and having positive body reactions instead of having negative reactions. You can be with a company and be doing so well, but you're not using the products. So that was our whole goal for the last year. Brett and I did not have any sponsors. We really worked hard on that. So personally, for me, I've been really dedicating time to that right now. And I've been kind of giving my body a break. And I think a lot of women need to hear this. The longevity of the sport is to be able to take breaks. You have to take breaks, because the sport does age you. You're going up and down body weight constantly. So for all these young females, all the young females that I work with, my main goal is I want to see them at the top. And the only way to see them at the top is allowing their bodies to rest. I mean, we're humans. I mean, there's only so much that our bodies can handle. So these last few months, I've just been doing that. And, we got a lot going on for Brett right now, and some things that I can't share yet because that's a surprise. But we're just working on those things for him right now, and making sure that he's the healthiest, he's at his best, at his soon show that's going to be probably very soon. So I'm just making sure that I'm doing my role, supporting him as an athlete, because you need that support. And then I just haven't made any decisions for myself when I will compete within the coming year. I'm just, like I said, just focusing on all the other things, traveling. We're going to be traveling. We travel so much. So it's kind of been very different for me, because it's been go, go, go the last 10 years. And now I'm like, I really want to kind of step back and make sure that I'm enjoying this time with him. And we do very well when we prep together, very well. way better than when one is prepping and so bizarre. But so overall, just like making sure that I'm there supporting him and all of our goals. I am 30 years old. So I'm like, okay, maybe in the next 5 years, I want to have a baby. I don't know.
Right. Yeah, you do have to think about all that. I think that the life span of most people with bodybuilding is about 10 years if you don't take a break. And so,
Sure.
you have to factor all that in for sure.
And we have such a big online training business that, we have over 200 inquiries sitting right now that we have to deny or we can't get to because, we're have a life outside of work as well. But the thing right now I'm in love with are my female clients. They're so remarkable. Like I have a wonderful relationship with every single one of them. And that is my goal every single day. And I'm kind of living through them. They're winning, it's all about the winning because I don't win, but it's all about, it's for me, it's just being able to see them succeed and just like giving them everything that I always wanted in a coach. And it's been such an interesting process and it's been so rewarding because everybody's life is so different and you have so many challenges. So it's really fun figuring that out for them. Yeah. It's what I truly love doing the most. So I'm like, okay, I really need to give more time to that. Yeah. Because bodybuilding is a very selfish sport. If you're not selfish, you're not going to be successful. And I don't care what anyone says. So it's been more of just being able to give back to them and, following my heart. Of course, I'm training hard because I don't know if I could go. I was sick for like 3 weeks. I'm like, I can't go to like intermediate training. I just can't. I have to go all out. It's just the person in me. I'm like, you need to relax, but it's hard. So I've been just enjoying the gym and just pushing weight that I haven't pushed in a long time. And so it's been really fun and letting other people train with me because I have a really hard time with that. So it's been kind of interesting, changing the pace.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you feel like I think this is the theme of most of the women that I've talked to is you fall in love with the training. You know what I mean? Like that's
yes.
Yeah. Like you can't take that away. Like different people feel differently about the dieting aspect and, competing and everything else. But I think a true bodybuilder is always going to be somebody who just is so passionate about lifting, right?
You have to be passionate about lifting. You do. And, on the dieting side, like, I think, I have to say this because a lot of people have, obviously positive things to say about bodybuilding, but also negative things. And I think the key is for all, especially women, is like building up their metabolism. So their bodies can withstand so much food that they're not ever being starved. Because the old time bodybuilding, it was you were starved and that was just, if you weren't being starved, then you weren't doing it right. So like right now, I just had a female compete and she was eating cereal to about 8 days out and shredded to pieces. And so it was just more of that taking the time to build up the metabolism because a lot of people, and how can you train and love the gym and train heavy when you're, 6 weeks out if you're being starved. Yeah. So it's just finding that groove. And I love that part of it. It's so exciting.
It does actually build a healthier person. I know I just interviewed Whitney Jones too, and she was talking about how her diet is more macro friendly. And she was like, has the healthiest relationship with food and how she eats for her competition prep is like, she's like, I'm eating into the show because I'm increasing my activity when I'm doing, you know what I mean? So it's like, I think people don't realize that this rut of dieting and starving yourself and doing all this activity can be reversed and you can be so much healthier and happier.
Absolutely. You definitely can. And I think right now, I really hope that's a transition that bodybuilding is going into, that a lot more coaches are learning that and understanding like, hey, actually, if we just feed this person up, they're probably going to lose more weight and they're going to get leaner because we're actually giving their body the sources that it needs to continue, going through these workouts every day, cardio and whatever it might be.
Yeah, absolutely. I know. And there's been a lot of, I know I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the evolution of the sport and stepping on stage. The different classes are becoming leaner and leaner. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I was afraid you were going to ask me this.
Good or bad?
I love that we have so many categories for the women now, because we all come in different shapes and sizes. I think that's so wonderful. And, especially for a beginner trying to figure out where they belong best. But as far as where the categories have gotten, I don't even recognize figure. And, and it's hard. It hurts me. It really hurts me because I've seen it go through everything. And I don't think it needs to be where it's at. These women are hard. They're lean. They look unhealthy. And of course, when you're looking like that, you're aging even quicker. Yeah. And I don't know what's going to happen. But, I think that's also another reason why I'm stepping back and really reevaluating. Yeah. Like I'm always going to be big, buff, muscular, lean, health, whatever I want to be, shape and size. But the conditioning that they are pushing on stage now and what they're rewarding is kind of scary. And it needs to be talked about, because I'd hate to see us lose another female. Yeah. because that's what it is. And once you reward this one person, everybody wants to be just like that. Yep. So they lose the sight of themselves. So as soon as you lose sight of yourself, you go, we're humans, we get depressed over these things, and you're thinking about it. Because, I even look at myself, and I'm very honest, and I tell this to my athletes, like, I know I'm worthy of the Olympia stage again. I've been on that stage many times. I have the shape, I have the symmetry, all of it. But what they're rewarding isn't me. Right. It's what they're rewarding is just not something that I want to do to myself. Yeah. I've been lean. I've been so lean, but it's like, they're so hard, they're lean, they're dry, and so for me as a coach, I have to explain this also to my athletes. Like, you don't have to be like this, and you don't have to be there tomorrow. You can be there in 5 years if that's what they keep rewarding. So I'm really interested to see what's going to happen, where it's going to go. But it's hard for me to see the figure category and be like, that's not what it was 5 years ago, and I got quite a few, athletes that competed with me are still competing. Boyana is one of them. I love her to pieces, and we've talked about this. It's changed so much. So it's just hard. You're like, I don't know what to bring in today. So I wish it would just be toned down just a little bit. Yeah. Just a little bit. And I know you can definitely speak on this as well, because it's changed a lot.
It has changed a lot. I can tell you that in 2012, when I watched Women's Physique, I thought, this is like, they have the posing like bodybuilding. It's a little bit more feminine with the posing. And then I thought, but this could be done naturally. I totally want to do this. And that's what made me want to get into competing. And then, probably in the last 3 years, 4 years, people are like, are you going to step on stage again? And I go, my category doesn't exist anymore. Like, there's no way, So
even for myself, like, women's physique is so beautiful. I'm admitting this now because everyone always made jokes like, you should do a women's physique show at least once before you're done. Right. I would have loved to, and I still would love to, but it's just not the way I ever want to look, nor do I want to put my body through that, because I'm educated. I know what it entails. I know how it all goes down. And it's just not something personally for me. I'm not saying anything against anyone else, but I know that I do want to have children one day. And when you keep pushing your body like that, there's many chances that you might not be able to get pregnant.
Right. And this is this is a 10-year span of your life, basically, that you're dedicating to a sport, let's say. And you still have 80 years, if you live to
I hope so.
Years old, right? You have all that time afterwards, and you have maybe changed the course of your history by what you did in a 10-year time span, so.
Yeah, it's honestly very hard for me right now, because I'm in that position right now where I have to make that decision, and I really want to get back on stage so bad. And I'm like, I want to be up there, but I don't want to look where figure is at right now. I was watching the show last weekend. I don't miss a beat, not at all. I have questions all the time coming in. What do you think of this? What do you, and it's so, it's hard for me to talk about, because I just wish they would be toned down. Yeah. Will that ever happen? I don't know.
Yeah. Because they are rewarding who's showing up. And it's let's say for, to be charitable, it's not necessarily that there aren't people that can't achieve that level of leanness or whatever, in a healthy manner, but for to encourage everyone else to follow suit, you're going to have people who are pushing way past their genetic limits. And
absolutely,
that's where we get these problems.
Speaking of my husband, don't talk. No, I completely agree with you. And because figure was this beautiful symmetry, and I know that we talk about rewarding what's up there, but also if these are our guidelines, then we should be rewarding those guidelines. I don't care if so-and-so is leaner. That's not the guideline of the category. So let's bump them down or have them transition into a different category.
Yeah, because even the bikini competitors are still at almost the leanest that they could be for the amount of muscle they have.
Courtney, I know Courtney very well, Courtney King. I look at her when she won the Olympia to what's winning the Olympia now. I'm like, oh my gosh. Basically bikini is what figure was.
Right.
Some of these older athletes, I'm at Armbrust Pro Gym. So we see all of the most amazing athletes come in and out, retired, and it's like even Heather Grace, I'm like, oh my gosh, she's a compete in figure and be this teeny little thing and be number one all the time. Yeah. So, but then again, it's like, I still encourage everyone to compete. And, I truly believe there's gonna be that one athlete in that one show that's going to make the biggest change for everybody. And I believe that's the only way that the categories might come down a little bit.
Well, and I think even, you showing up and saying, this is the package that I'm going to bring, at least it has a statement to it. You know what I mean? If it's something that you want to do and you want to continue doing, it's just, yeah. You
said it. Now that's what's going to convince me right there. And I'm like, I want to bring my best, get on there, be exactly what I need to be and what I see figure as, and get on stage no matter what the placing is. But it's really hard when I was a top athlete for so many years. Okay. So it's just, and it's just like trying to refine that.
Yeah. Trust your gut.
Trust your gut. Yeah. But I love the different divisions. And I'm so thankful that women's bodybuilding is back, because those women work so hard. Oh
my gosh.
I'm in awe of Andrea Shaw. She has such a stunning physique. Oh my God.
I know. And she's beautiful. She's beautiful.
She's beautiful.
Yeah. Yay, Michigan. She came out of Michigan.
Oh, is that where you're from?
Yes.
Yeah. Have you guys got any snow yet?
We got snow just the last 2 days. Yeah. My daughter went to, I'll quick tell you this. She went to go to with her boyfriend and her boyfriend's brother to his grandparents' house last night. And I was like freaking out because it started snowing. And I'm just like, she's never driven in it before, So yeah.
I can't even imagine being a mom and worrying about kids. Oh my God. No, we're here in Denver and we haven't had any snow yet. It's about 60 today, but it's been getting like 20s overnight. So it's a little chilly, but I'm ready for it. I'm like, if it's going to be cold, it better snow. And probably because my dog, we have a little new puppy and he hasn't seen snow yet. So I'm like, oh, he's going to love it. He's probably going to hate it.
What kind of dog did you get?
So actually I went to Serbia to see my family.
Oh yeah.
And yes, I got a Lagotto Romagnolo. I don't even know how many are in the United States. When I took him to the vet, they were like, how'd you get this dog? I'm like, just relax. But my family breeds them. He's very special. He acts like a little boy, a little toddler. So it's been a big adjustment for all of us. So
what's behind you? Is that?
Is he behind me? Yeah. Come here, Marissa. Yeah. I know. My husband's like, what kind of collar is that? I'm like, it's a Christmas collar because I already have all my Christmas decorations up.
That's amazing. I know that's what I'm waiting for after Thanksgiving is to get the Christmas decorations up.
I know why, I'm sure you do your decorations on your own as well. So I'm like, I better do this now so I can actually enjoy it because then I have to take it all down and, in such a short time. Yeah. So you got to do it a little bit early. That's the excuse.
There was a couple of years ago that I had read a study that people who put their Christmas decorations up earlier are happier, more positive people.
I love change. Like I'm that person, like put me in a room with all these random strangers and I will talk to every single one of them. I love that, especially women. And I think that sport has really helped me with that, being in such a, in such a sport that, there's so much intimidation. There's so many different humans around you all the time. So I'm really grateful that the sport, I mean, of course, bodybuilding teaches you so much in life, so much in life. I suggest that anybody, if you have a goal of yourself or a body goal, like do a show just to build confidence as a woman. So since bodybuilding, I love change. So I'm like, okay, fall's over. I don't see any more leaves falling. Everything else is coming up.
I like new beginnings. I think that's what it is. So fresh starts, it's kind of the same thing. Yeah.
Yes. Same here. It's an addiction. I'm like, I've never been addicted to anything but like new beginnings. I'm like, I need to relax. But it's just exciting. And, and when you're meeting new people, it's great. And we have such a huge bodybuilding culture at Armbrust Pro Gym. It's insane. You're more than welcome to come out anytime.
I will do it. I totally will. So, and it's on camera now. It's recorded, the invitation.
Oh yeah. You're like, in case you forget.
Very cool.
Yeah.
I know I watched you guys working out there and it looks like you have an amazing gym community.
Yeah, I mean, Dylan Armbrust does a fantastic job. And we got so many shows here as well now. And Branch Warren is actually going to have a show here May 7th. And there'll be the first competition that we have in Colorado that's not just bodybuilding, but there's going to be powerlifting and many other sports. And we're going to try to get some kids sports involved as well, which I think is great because sometimes people have the wrong perception about bodybuilding. So when you bring everybody together in one community, it's really interesting to see these young kids, inspired by these bodybuilders and things like that. So we're looking forward to it.
It's funny because, you get a lot of negativity on social media with bodybuilding, but when you present it to kids, like kids love people who look like superheroes and,
I know.
Like if anything could inspire children to be healthier, it would be bringing on a group of bodybuilders to talk about training in the gym and how to eat to create this body.
Yeah, we go and speak at elementary school and middle school every once in a while. And it's like, they're just so amazed by it, and nowadays there's so many young children that are so overweight. So it's positive. But I think the reason, back to what you said about social media kind of being, a little hateful towards bodybuilding, I think it's because it's so intimidating because it's such a dedicated sport to yourself. Yeah. And we know how hard it's to achieve body goals. It is hard. It is so hard. So I think that's a reason why people can kind of, badmouth bodybuilding because they're like, oh, they're just about food, body. Oh, look at them. Oh my gosh, she has too much muscle. All this nonsense. But deep down inside, they're like, man, I wish I looked like that.
It's a fear to challenge yourself and commit to something, I think, because like you said, I mean, the cool thing is there's seasons to all of this and you can step back like you're doing, like I have done at different parts of my life for different reasons. And you get back into it and, any little bit of atrophy that you've experienced comes right back. Like you build that solid base. You got it, you've got it.
I did want to mention, don't forget, I did want to mention, I really love what you're doing. Because sometimes I get on these men's YouTube channels and I just rip them apart about how inconsiderate they are with the women's categories. They're always reporting that, there was a show here and there, men. I'm like, what about the women that place, first? And what about the girl that just, competed at the Olympia in figure and was third in the world, her first Olympia show. And so I really appreciate that you're doing this and having it more driven towards women because we don't really have enough of that.
Yeah, no. Well, if you're ever interested, I am trying to get together a little chick chat and I would love to do this more regularly. Melissa Brodsky is already on board. I'm trying to find my crew.
Okay. Count me in. I would love that. I would love to, just to share different ideas together and, talk about some of the things that people aren't comfortable talking about that need to be talked about. So we need more of that. We need more women empowerment in this sport. And what's crazy to me, and I always tell this to Jake Wood, but I mean, we make up such a huge percentage of actually of the IFBB, of the MPC.
Yeah.
There's way more females than there are males.
Yeah.
And we get no recognition. So we needed more of that.
It's funny to think about who the crowds are, because I think like there's a small group of men who like men's bodybuilding, and then everybody else is interested in the females.
They are. We just need more broadcasting of it. Oh, definitely. Definitely. These men are all like, we just went to a show last weekend and we had quite a few athletes competing. It was so funny because they did like men's category, like all of them basically. Then they went into women's, and like the whole energy changed in the room. I'm like, yeah, it's coming. It's going down. Girls in bikinis. Yep. Everybody was just like, oh my gosh. And it was so fun to like, we were sitting in the front row. I was just turning back, watching. I'm like, yeah, that's what I thought. I need more of this.
So cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
Well, let's see, what else did I want to talk to? So
yes.
I have a couple of questions about, we talked a little bit about social media. I always do ask this question. So I'm going to just state it a little bit more frankly. What is your favorite thing about social media, and what is your least favorite thing about social media?
I think my favorite thing about social media is being able to express yourself. Yeah. And then, and which is a really touchy subject because some people don't express themselves genuinely, but you know what, that's just too bad. You choose accounts that you follow and find people that are real and, that don't have every picture filtered. So I think it's great to express yourself. It's great for connecting with people. But what I don't like about it is, and personally, I'm not speaking for myself, because for me, I don't like the impact it has on people's mindsets, but personally, that's never been an issue for me ever in my life. Yes. And I think it's just the way I've grown up, the way I see it, because it is, if at the end of the day, like is a click. It's this is what it is. That's all it is. But some people get so caught up in that. So if they could just kind of come back and express themselves more and be real, it's so hard to see that. There's an athlete, a friend of mine, Maddie, she always talks about her anxiety and depression, and that can be really hard to talk about. But once she started doing it, she's been constantly doing it. And it's actually been really empowering to be like, there's somebody actually sharing how they truly feel. Because obviously my husband and I are so involved with this industry and we know everybody. And it's so amazing because I've been so fooled in so many situations where I'm like, wow, this couple is so happy. They're so awesome. Oh my gosh. Like, I wish I was like them, just being, a human. And then you figure out later, it's like, none of that's real. So I think that is the worst part about it, is trying to figure out what's real and what's not. So, but it's a great tool for business. That is how we get all of our clients and how we can express ourselves. So just making sure that you're following the right people, and because it can, like I said, have a very negative impact on your mind. Yeah. Like my clients, I'm like, last week, if I know, because I know everything about them, I'm like, last week, I'm like, if you have an issue with social media, you're not getting on social media for a week. Yeah. Just allowing yourself to really actually be present in the moment of what you were truly doing, instead of, being so caught up.
I think caught up is exactly what it is, because I think people get like letting other people and the results of what they put out there dictate, it's like, taking breaks. Sometimes you just don't post anything for a week and a half. And it's like, you hear people saying like, oh, I feel guilty about that. And you're just like,
guilty. I know. But how many times, and I'm going to only speak about the men because I don't care, because they can take it. How many times have they posted photos and I'm like, oh my gosh, this guy is going to be number one. Like, holy crap. We get to the show. He's last call out. And I'm like, you gotta be kidding me.
Yeah.
So, and then there's so many young kids on social media nowadays as well. So, I think it's really important for us adults and professional athletes, amateur athletes, nationally qualified athletes, whatever it is, to kind of really take that into consideration and just give out the truth.
Well, it's really tough with this industry. And, this is why I like talking to people who are going through it, and from different, some of them are moms or whatever. We have to think about this, how we're presenting ourselves, not just to everybody, but our children. I can say, for example, a couple of years ago, like I used to post a lot of back shots, different shots, or I didn't have a shirt on and I have my back, and then one day, my daughter, she says to me, I don't really like it when you post pictures like that. And I said, okay, I won't do it anymore. It's like,
You sound like my mom. My
you
mom's
know,
like, my friends were on your social media. And I'm like, Mom, I am 30 years old. I think I can handle it from here. All right.
no,
Yeah.
but I
I understand that.
I would never want her to be uncomfortable. Or, and some of her friends I know have seen like my, or they'll Google images, the images are out there. You Google my name, there's a ton of pictures. And
There's guys probably her age, like, your mom's hot. He's like, I'm done with it. I'm done.
Like, no. I'm like, you don't have to follow me. We'll just pretend we don't know each other on the interwebs. No, we don't.
And vice versa. It's also moms that, have never been able to express themselves. And now they're posting pictures of themselves that, they, it took them maybe 5 years to post that one photo. But so, it can be vice versa. It can be a really positive thing as well, especially for us women, because we have so many expectations. Ugh. Oh my gosh. So many expectations. Like, you have to be on point all the time. It's ridiculous. So yeah.
And it's nice to just have, like, I think this is when I first got my social media, like first started my Instagram, this was the first time that I had a community that I felt like supported me in what I was doing. Like you said, here I am in Michigan. It's like, who bodybuilds in Michigan? Nobody. I mean, I didn't even, I was lifting at a gym in college. I went back to college when I was going through my divorce, and somebody was like, oh, are you doing our local show? And I was like, we have bodybuilding shows in this town, like, like,
I know everything about Michigan. The athlete I'm going to be training with later, my friend, she's actually from Michigan, so she always gives me the scoop, and I'm like, oh boy, I can understand. It's like Iowa. So yeah. But again, you're being a leader in that state of, especially when it's kind of fun when you're in a smaller state and nobody does it, because you're being a leader. People are looking up to you.
Yeah.
Whether they want to admit it or not.
Yeah. And, not everybody has to get deep into the sport, but, like you said, we just have an unhealthy, the United States. Are you kidding me? Like, just more people getting involved in going to the gym.
Yeah.
We probably wouldn't have nearly as much like COVID crap going on either,
Absolutely. And I see that, yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah. What was things like for you with lockdown?
Honestly, we were fortunate enough to be able to, before my husband and I moved to Colorado, we bought tons of equipment so that we had in our friend's basement. So we actually went home for quite a while and we just trained there. And, at the time that it was new to everybody. So it sucked. But now when I look back on it, it was kind of rewarding at the same time. Well, but let's just get this out of the way. The home workouts with the soup can and all that shit we had to do, that was so stupid. It was so stupid. Like, I could, if we went to lockdown again, I wouldn't lie to people. I'd be like, yo, go get some weights and train in your house. No, we're not doing that again. I was going through my phone, deleting photos. I'm like, oh my God, what was I thinking? Why am I lifting the chair up? Or why am I, that's an expensive piece of thing I had in my house. Why am I lifting that? I'm like, no, I hope nobody did these.
We're like squatting our sofas and like trying to do rows from under a table. Like,
what's wrong with us?
It's because it's an addiction. It's because it's part of our routine. That's why. And when you took, it was so stressful. I know I was like on Facebook, like looking at, and I was like wanting to kill people because it was
just what is going on here. But no, my husband and I did a lot of activities outside and, and just kind of dealt with it. And, Arm Breast was obviously closed down for about a month and a half. So, we just kind of dealt with it and spent more time with family, which I'm really grateful because our lives are very busy and we don't get that time. So we took advantage of that time.
Yeah. Yeah. Same. I mean,
hopefully that doesn't happen again.
I can't.
I can't imagine. I think we would deal with it differently now.
Yeah. Knowing what we know now. I mean, there would have to be it'd have to be a super virus. You know what I mean?
Well, basically everybody has a gym in their garage now. So we just had to find people with a gym in their garage.
when it first happened, like 2 weeks in, I was like I would give my right arm to do lat pull downs right now. Like you can't mimic a lat pull down unless you have a cable machine or like a hammer strength machine. Like you can't do a pull down with anything.
It made you appreciate really though, that how privileged we are to every day to be able to go work out and,
Totally.
take care of ourselves. It really did. Cause then you got back and you're just like rubbing the equipment. You're like, oh my gosh, I never thought this would happen again. You don't know what to do with yourself. So, it's a good way also to appreciate the things that we're so privileged here in the United States. We're so privileged. It's incredible.
I agree. I know it is still the best country. It's still the best country in the world.
Yes, definitely. I can definitely speak from experience. So
yeah. Oh my goodness. I was going to tell you something funny when I first stumbled across you, however, many, many, many years ago. It was when I think I watched a video with you working with John Meadows. And I was like, I think I was expecting you to not speak English because of your
You're not the first person to say that. Yeah. When I hired Dylan Armbrust as my coach for a little while, that's kind of how we ended up in Colorado. But like he said, he told me like a week, like he was like, I'll call you today. Week later, I'm like, I never heard back from that coach. I'm like, I feel really like, I'm like, he kind of stood me up. Now he's like my second dad. We're best friends. And he's like, Ivana, I did not know how to call you because I was like, how are we going to communicate? How are we going to speak to each other? I'm like, really? I'm like, oh my God. I really don't even have an accent. So
what's your background? What is Ivusic? What is that?
My mom is Serbian and my dad is Croatian.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So
nice.
Quite the mix.
You have you're a Christian though, aren't you?
Yes.
Yeah.
So back then Serbian was an Orthodox, Croatian was a Catholic, but since we've been very Americanized in the United States, my parents are just Christian. We don't celebrate, we don't do either of the faiths. We just go to a Christian church and that's just that. And but yeah, I was very fortunate enough to grow up in a very Christian home and to understand, meaning of life and what life, because life is, nowadays, especially in our bodybuilding community, it's been really difficult. Every day you wake up and you're hearing about someone passing. So it's just been really grateful to understand that, every day is, there's so many stresses in life right now, but every day is I wake up, I'm just so grateful because we have so many darn things that we're so privileged that you don't care about them until you lose them. So I'm like, I'm good. Like I care about them every day. God, please know that I do because I don't want to lose them, and especially with the men's bodybuilding right now, it's been very hard. It's been one after another. And then of course, my husband is, going to be the top at Olympia this year. I truly believe that. And, as a wife, like I'm listening to all this criticism, all these YouTube channels, like talking, like, they're mentioning him and it's like, which is fine. But I don't listen to all of it, but I do take things into consideration at all times.
Yeah. Well,
our bodies can only handle so much.
Yeah. Health is very important. And, yeah, these guys are, they're obviously.
It's okay to talk about I'm okay to talk about it. A lot of people they want indirectly ask me questions, how I feel about Brett being so big. And it's like, stop beating around the bush and just ask me because, I feel like I used to live so close and sheltered, like, oh, don't share your opinion because, people just attack it. It's like, I don't care. Like, ask me, interview me. And if you're going to, mention these things on your channel, have me on your channel, ask me, and I can tell you, because it is the truth and it needs to be talked about and you need to take your health into consideration. If you want to be a top elite, it doesn't matter right now because it goes for females as much as males. If you want to be at that point and you want to be taking the things you're doing and back and forth, then you also need to spend the money to have your heart looked at, to have your body evaluated. That is my biggest thing. This is the biggest takeaway from this interview is I want people to understand that. Do whatever your heart desires, but also you have to do all the other things on the side and take care of yourself. It's not that hard.
Well, and that's what makes the sport expensive when you get into the top levels because there are, there's your coach and your training and your diet and everything else, but then you get involved with the drugs. But with doing these drugs, you need to get blood work regularly. You need to get echocardiograms. You need to have a doctor that understands the sport that you're doing. And you have to understand that even doing all that, you can't necessarily mitigate the health risks.
And yeah, and truthfully, like, you know, you asked me about what my plans are, and I had plans to be at the Arnold, and I was like, okay, I'm going in all that. But then I was like, hold on, like, you know, Brett's getting ready for a show, and I got to make sure that, because you need some support and help. I got to make sure that he's staying accountable and he's doing all of these things, making appointments. Like, oh, here, I want to get this done. Let's get this looked at. Okay, if you don't feel like this, you know. So that's another reason, and that's the truth. And especially after just a passing, after Sean just passed, after George just passed. Yeah, I mean, I like to be honest and talk about it. Reach out to his coach, tell his coach, this is how I feel. I'm the wife, I'm the one living with them, I'm the one that's seeing all the activities daily. So I need this to happen before we make this decision, before he does this show, because, you know, it can't happen.
Yeah.
So that's another reason I'm like, I have to step back and make sure that I'm doing everything as the wife, because, you know, he's going to be very successful. He's already very successful. So, and if you haven't had the butcher sauce yet, you have to have it. We need to send you a bottle. It is so good. It is so good.
What is the butcher sauce? What is
Have you not heard of Flavor Gang? Oh boy.
No.
So, I mean, it's like going viral in our industry, but Flavor Gang started I think they're out on the East Coast. But anyways, Nick Walker has his mutant sauce, and they just made a Brett the Butcher sauce, and they're all very healthy sauces, and they have all kinds of sauces, all kinds.
Okay.
I have to send you something.
Okay.
You're missing out. I know you're like, I'm only hanging out here with the women. So, but yeah, so we've got a lot going on. I mean, so much. It's constant. And Better Bodies and Gasp, I definitely want to mention my sponsors. They're phenomenal. Yes. Takes so long to find the best sponsors, and you gotta have a family, or like, I love being family oriented with my sponsors. So we finally have found that. So we're so grateful. So grateful.
Well, I definitely follow Gasp and Better Bodies, and I am realizing that they do have the top best athletes, like all of the best people. They reach out and grab them. So I think that's awesome.
And when we're all together, we're all literally family. Like Guy Cicerino has become one of my best friends, and it's all through them. But, you know, you actually give these people chances. And I think what Michael Johansson has done is, as his goal, like, we all sit down and we all break our lives down and talk. And I've never had that with a sponsor, and same with Hostile. And it's so fun because you actually look forward to being with the people that you work with. It just changes. It's like, we feel like we're playing games, but really we're working the whole day. So you don't even understand, you don't realize it, because you're just enjoying it so much.
Yeah. Well,
and everybody's got a different walk of life. So it's nice to hear everybody's story.
Yeah. And you have people involved that you guys were just at Branch Warren's compound, were you not? Yeah.
I may have been, I'm going to post the video. I may have been sitting in a truck shooting out the windshield. I was like, oh my God. I was the only female with a bunch of like 20 dudes. So yeah. Like, okay, it's your turn. And Branch is a very intimidating human being. He's my friend, but I'm still intimidated. So it's fun. We get to do things like that that's outside of bodybuilding as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Branch is one of the first bodybuilders that I ever met. And I've met him a couple of times now because he did a local show. And I saw him in Dallas one time too. Right after he won Dallas Europa in 2015, he was going to the stage because they were calling him, and I, like an idiot, I was like, hey, can I click a picture? And he was like, of course. Like, just stop from going to get his, like, they were calling people back up on stage to get, like, because he won. But some of the guys are who that's what got me involved in bodybuilding first, was because men's bodybuilding was so prominent in 2010, right? So who did you start to look up to once you started making your way into onto that level?
Honestly, Branch Warren and Phil Heath, because they were guest posing at, I only did like Midwest pro shows. I won the St. Louis Pro, the Omaha Pro, St. Louis Pro twice maybe, but they were all guest posing at those shows. So they were, yeah. And now, like, of course, Phil Heath and his wife are very good friends of ours. And it's just like weird because I was like, I used to be such a fangirl. And now I'm just like, Phil, stop. Like, so that's been really nice. But those two definitely, which I'm really grateful that those were the two people that first came into my life in the bodybuilding world, because they've been great role models for our industry and both been very successful outside of competing. Both are retired and very successful. So, those were the two, but it's so amazing how you used to like look up to these people, and I still do, but like, be so intimidated. Now we know we've created so many great relationships and friendships and had so many good times together.
Yeah.
So
it's amazing. My thing is always when like you've met somebody and then the next time you see them, they're like, oh, Deborah. And you're just like, oh my gosh, you remembered who I am, like,
girl, I'm totally men's bodybuilding fanatic.
Yes. Yes.
That's me. Like when it's men's bodybuilding, I'm like, nobody talk, nobody nothing. Like, I love all the women's categories, of course, but men's bodybuilding, I'm like, and I think that's just because it's what really started bodybuilding, and it's what's been around the longest.
Yeah.
And it's fun. They all have such crazy rivals against each other. So
yeah. And it is really fun to see how many of them have made their way out of competing and still, held on to the level of muscle that's healthy for them and created healthy lifestyles and successful businesses. I think it's really it's just been really fun to watch people walk out of it as well and still be successful.
Yeah, I think back in the day that it was really hard to be successful outside of bodybuilding, but now it's very different. It's like you become successful, then you become a bodybuilder or vice versa, but it's in that transition. But before it was like, you're a bodybuilder, you were done. And then you're like, what do I do with my life?
Right.
So now we have so many more avenues for so many different ways to be successful.
Yeah. I wanted to give a shout out to Fuad just because I love that he kind of had this dream and then he didn't really know where he was going with bodybuilding and kind of waffling with still competing and everything. And now he's created this amazing company and he's got I listened to
Bro chat.
Oh my gosh. Yes. And like, it's like my favorite because it's like reality TV. You just like decompress. You don't have to think about anything. Maybe you'll learn something. You'll laugh your ass off. Like it's the best thing.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
The first time that they did the actual in-person podcast just a few weeks ago when we were in Dallas, like I was in the background literally in tears because some of the things that these guys talked about was emotional and it was real. And it's what he's done is incredible. And, he's got a really special place in my heart because of the relationship that he had with Sean. And as Brett and I were trying to find a new sponsor, we had so many different offers. And I'll never forget it. John and I are at the Chicago Pro. Brett's competing that weekend at his first open bodybuilding. It was my 30th birthday. We were walking down the sidewalk and he's like, I think that'll be the best decision you make. And I support it. And I want you to do that. And ever since then, obviously it's just, allowed us to have a connection with each other. But what Fuad's doing and the products that he is producing, there's really no company that it can stand next to it right now. And it's so important. Like I'd rather pay $30 extra for a product and know that I'm actually getting a full product inside me. Because a lot of these women sometimes are like, oh, I'm breaking out since I started drinking powder protein. I'm like, yeah, it's from the protein and it's the brand that you're using and so many different things because there's so many companies now. So to be successful and with a company like that, a supplement company, is very difficult. And he's done a phenomenal job. I think 2 nights ago, Brett had to try on 10 different shirts because he wanted to make sure Brett was getting exactly what he wanted to wear, be comfortable. I'm like, Fuad, if I have to take one more photo, I'm done. I'm done with this. But the bro chats I've really, really enjoyed. And it's allowed Brett, he's kind of quiet. It's allowed him to express himself. And it's not just, it's for women and men to watch. It's fantastic.
Yes.
It's fantastic. And guys, as a Reno.
If I could say anything to Fuad, like I would be like, dude, girls listen to this. He constantly says like women don't ever listen to this. And I don't think he has any idea because if you're like, me, anyone who actually follows men's bodybuilding, that's probably the number one podcast to be listening to.
So little secret, but we're going to totally have a wife's episode. It's going to be like Melissa Valier and me. And then, well, nobody for Guy because he doesn't have a woman in his life, but we are going to do that. And I'm like, I can't wait. Yeah, I can't wait. But yeah, he needs to bring on some women, but it is definitely, it's a bro chat. It needs to stay where it's at. And, you know, I always get inquiries saying, hey, like, I heard you do a lot of good coaching. I heard it on Fuad's bro chat. And I'm like, oh, women are listening to this. This is great. And sometimes they talk about really, really, really inappropriate things.
Sure.
Oh my gosh. But that's all right. So my husband, I'm like, I don't want to hear, when you're talking about inappropriate things about me, I don't want to hear about it. I'm not going to watch that episode. I'm going to skip right over it.
Right. They do too. It's different for guys though, to be so sexually open about stuff. It's kind of expected. It's very locker room. So whatever.
Yeah. It's been nice. Yeah. Oh, and exactly. That's what I hope you can do, something similar with women. I think that would be incredible.
Yeah. That's what I want to do. That's why I said it to you. That's why, I don't know, 3 or 4 months ago when I said, hey, do you want to do the podcast? And I was talking with Melissa and I said, I really want to get Ivana to join us with our chick chat. And so I was just waiting to have our initial interview first.
Yes. Yeah, we made it happen. So yeah, I'm always open to that, you know, and I can always arrange my schedule, make something happen.
Perfect. We'll do it for sure. For sure. All right. A couple of last quick questions and I'm going to let you go because I know you have clients lined up. So what is your biggest gym pet peeve?
Oh boy. I should know this at the top of my head. You know, obviously the common thing I have to say is, I think the biggest pet peeve is when it's in a busy environment and you're using 3 different machines and you expect no one else to get on those machines. Yeah. No, you know, of course, Brett and I have a lot of authority at the gym. So, you know, they're like, Ivana, make sure you say something. I'm like, why me? Like, so I'm going to go out to people like, hey, let me try to explain to you why you should not be using, why other people can work in with you. Like, they're just like, no, you need to wait. Yeah. So I think that's a big gym pet peeve. And obviously not racking your weight after, which honestly, you wouldn't believe it. It's very rare at the gym at arm rest. And if it happens, guess what we do? We rewind the cameras and then we ask that person, and that person will never do it again because they're so embarrassed. But that is just such a pet peeve, and just like respecting the gym, you know? Yeah. So.
Well, in your environment, right? It's your environment and you're in it with other people. So it is kind of funny sometimes when you're just like, you know, I'll see people and they'll have like 8 sets of dumbbells because they're supersetting. So they have them all, you know, or they're doing a drop set and it's just like, nobody else can use those or like.
It's so strange. It's such strange behavior. I would never, I don't think I've ever told someone, no, you can't work in. Like, who am I to say that? Absolutely not.
Right. Right. I know. Or I think my latest one is people using the benches for like to set the weights on or something, but they're not using the bench when they could set it on the, you know, it's like.
And then you're like, can I use this bench? You're like, my weight's on it.
I know.
Okay. Well, okay, great. I'm going to take your weight off. Okay. And I'm going to sit here.
You know, when it's busy, that's the thing, because it's busy and we're all trying to use everything. So, yeah.
Yeah. Arm press, I think they see anywhere from 400 to 500 to 600 people a day. Wow. Girl, it's insane. Yeah. It's such an electric environment. Okay. Anyways, what else?
Trip out for sure. Let's see here.
There's a lot of cute men.
Don't be. I still got 1 more year of parenting.
1 more year of parenting. Okay, fair enough.
What kind of music do you like to listen to?
Oh boy. Really depends on the mood I'm in. I love country music. I love listening to new Christian music. I love it. Yeah. And then 50 Cent. Just depends what kind of mood I'm in. But yeah, when people ask me that question, some people are like, oh, I only listen to this, but I love listening to new music, different kinds of music. I'm not really into like the EDM and screamo stuff. That just doesn't, it just isn't me.
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm like, if I can't understand the words, how could I find meaning behind this?
Yeah.
So, and I just didn't grow up around it much. Maybe that's why. But I love old music. I love old school music for sure.
Yeah. Did you watch, were you guys at the Olympia?
Yes. We actually sat with Robbie's family.
Oh,
it was interesting. Yes.
I don't know if you remember this, but the music that they played for, like, I was loving, I watched it on the video, and I was loving the music that they played for the like the wellness, and I think the bikini division too. It was like a Latin flair, and it was like, I don't know if you even noticed when you were there.
Oh, they did it so they didn't do it for bikini much, but they did it for all of wellness.
Yes.
And it was actually really beautiful. And I kind of like that because it was expressing a different ethnicity, different country, different, all of that. Yeah. And half of the wellness girls barely even speak English. So kind of, you know, and that's kind of what they probably grooved to. So I really like that they did that. That was really, it was like the talk of the weekend.
Yeah, I know. I was like, I could listen to this while I'm training. This really gets, like, I just love it. I felt like, I don't know, it's very salsa-y. It was very dancing.
Like, you wonder why they all start dancing. I'm like, I'm sitting there in my seat. I'm like, oh my gosh, makes perfect sense.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very cool. So if you had a theme song that played every time you walked into the room, what would it be? Do you know?
Oh gosh, I don't know. But you know what's amazing is any pro show that I've won, I can remember exactly what song was playing and the feeling it has given me, every single one.
Really?
Yeah. And it's so strange, but like comes on that I can remember every single moment, whether the show was 5 years ago, 6 years ago, it doesn't matter. So, but yeah, music, I love everything. And my husband and I are the same exact way.
Yeah.
I know some people are like we have guests over, they're like, play this and this. I'm like, how'd you even think of that? Like, I'm just like, I'll just play whatever and, you know, it'll shuffle through.
Yeah. I think that I get really revved up with some of the Christian music now too, which is kind of like weird how you can just get so, I don't know, it just like fills you. Right.
You need to listen to For King and Country.
Yes. Yes.
I saw them on 2 Christmases ago. Oh my gosh. They're phenomenal. A lot of people have the wrong idea. Like they think Christian music, like old gospel music. No, it's not that at all. It's like exactly everything that we should be listening to. It's fantastic. And it's so mood changing and it's so awakening. Yeah.
You're like, you want to like raise your arms up. You're like, I got to lift.
So, and then like, you're like, well, and then you're training and everyone's like, oh my gosh, that was a crazy lift. I did some back lift the other day. Everyone's like, are you kidding me? My husband's like, why were you doing that much weight? I'm like, it was easy. And I'm like, because it's the things that I listen to. They're so empowering. I'm like, I can do so much more than I ever, you know, than what you tell yourself. It's so amazing to come into the gym and just close off all distractions. People know, like, I'm so sweet. I'll talk to everyone for as long as you want. If I'm training, have some common courtesy. And people know. They're like, oh, Ivana's wearing a hat today. That means don't even look at her. My friends don't even come up to me. They'll text me. They're like, hi. I'm like, you're so stupid. Come over here. But yeah, it is a time that you need for yourself. We all need that time.
Yeah. I think setting boundaries is something I just talked about this with Whitney as well, about women having, you know, before you get that confidence, when you're just starting to lift, you're not always able to like tell people, hey, I'm in here for a purpose. And maybe at that point, you don't actually look like, you know, I'm a diehard yet, because you're working towards that physique. And so you have to be able to set boundaries with your gym.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, Whitney's been around for a long time. So like, obviously, and she trains in kind of in her own gym environment. But, you know, honestly, what I hear the most of is like women complaining at the front desk, like that they're being harassed by a male or something like that. Vice versa. It can be in any way, doesn't matter. Because it's been the other way many other times where women are harassing men and making them feel uncomfortable. So, you know, I've had to handle many situations where I'm just like, and to me, I'm like, man, I kind of forget that happens because I don't really have to deal with it anymore.
Yeah.
You know, and if it does occur with me, my husband's like, Ivana's going to take care of it. She knows how to take care of this, you know, because I built that confidence to be able to take care of it.
Yes.
But it's a scary thing because it does happen very often, very often.
Well, and I think people want to, I'm gonna get crude here for a second, because I think people want to find somebody, you know, that also takes care of themselves and goes to the gym. But I always am like, you know, you have to be careful because you don't shit where you eat. You know what I mean? Like,
if they're not giving you the same hint back, it's probably a no. I mean, a body language is a very strong thing.
Right. Well, and I think it's lost a lot now because social media has made people really awkward and they don't understand, you know, like when you're backing away and you're like, and they're just keep going and you're just like, yeah.
Like, don't wink at me across the gym. If you went, I've went up to guys where I'm like, are you seriously winking at me? They're like, oh, well, I'm like, come on. Like, my husband's right there. You're winking at me. I'm like, don't do it again. I'm like, I'm gonna let it go this time. And I'm just like, gonna make it like a slight joke about it. And then they never look at you again. Yeah. It works every time.
Oh my gosh. Well, and like I said, that confidence, I've had that before too, where I've had people just literally staring at me. And I finally just go, I'm like, is there a problem? Because I can't, you know, if you were watching me work out, you wouldn't be staring at me when I'm not training and just standing there. Like maybe you were watching what I was doing, but to just
aren't they just ballsy? Sometimes you're like, man, I'll give you the credit because you're ballsy, but it's be the last time you do that.
Yeah, yeah,
it's amazing.
But you
it's kind of funny.
Yeah, you just have to call them out on it. That's what I think.
Sure.
Yeah, and then they think you're a bitch, and then nobody ever.
No one ever talks to you again. And you're like, I'm just trying to find a date here at the gym. They're like, don't talk to that girl.
They're like, I'll be like, next year. No.
Yeah, next year. Give me another year to myself.
Yeah, I got my one more year.
The dating world is a scary place. I tell my husband all the time, I'm like, I'm so glad we have found each other and we don't have to do it. It's a scary place.
Yeah. And I love seeing couples that are happy and healthy. Like I love seeing that on social media, and it's not that I want it because it's not really something that I want, but I love that you can show other people that healthy, happy relationships exist. And
they do exist.
Yeah. And this is what it looks like, you know, you see, I mean, John and Renee Jewett, I know them really well. I think they're great as well. Yeah. And in the sport combined with the craziness of this sport as well. So, I mean, you can do it. There are people.
Yeah. Yeah. Melissa and Ian. I mean, but to maintain those healthy relationships, marriages, you do have to have some time to slow down, whether you're both professional athletes or not, or whatever the circumstances are. You have to be able to slow down just a little bit because time flies by so fast. So, yeah. Well, I'm so glad that you had me on. I really appreciate it.
It's been so great. One last question.
Yep.
If you, who do you think that women would like to hear from on the podcast? Who's somebody that you admire, who you think should be on the podcast? Did you say, no, never mind. I was thinking you said, I wasn't sure about that before. I wondered if
I think more women that are outspoken and are more truthful about their past, their current state, what they're going through. Yeah. I think having Maddie Forbes, is that how you say her last name? She just competed in her first wellness show here in Colorado. She's dating or she's engaged to Flex Lewis's brother.
Oh yes, yes.
I think that would be someone great. There was somebody else. Why am I drawing a blank? They do such a phenomenal job of just like really being transparent. I think transparency is huge.
Yes.
But I think she'd be great to have on. I also think Liv Roth, she actually coaches Maddie, would be great to have on. And like, it would be great to have all of us women on at the same time and just kind of, calling each other out on things and being able to discuss these things. Yeah. Because, it's not until I do interviews like this that I get so much feedback from other women being like, wow, like I can actually relate to you. It's like, no shit.
Yeah.
Like I'm a human being too. And so it's a lot of, a lot of people are very intimidated. So, but I think those two, I feel bad. There's this person in my mind. I just can't say it to you. But yeah, just, and I can definitely send you a message and share some more girls with you, but there's quite a few girls out there that are, being more outspoken about their lives. Yeah. And gaining weight and losing weight and then gaining weight again because they have a bad relationship with food. And how to overcome that. I think those people are great to have on as well. And really just like dig deep into those topics.
Absolutely. I mean, that's a huge message, and usually something that I get in with these interviews, but I love the personals. I love the human being behind the athlete and the personal story. And, you know, and you presented it beautifully. So.
You have to ask some more uncomfortable questions. I think that's great. It really breaks things down for people.
Awesome. Awesome.
Thank you so much for having me on.
Ivana, where can people find you if they're looking?
I'm at Instagram at Ivana Ivusic. And then any inquiries that we do at teamconquerculture at gmail.com. That's it.
Perfect. Perfect. All right. You can find me on Instagram at buffcake22. You can follow the podcast at Women's Fittest. Sorry, I had just changed the name a little bit ago and I'm still getting it right. And you can follow us on Apple, iTunes, and anywhere that you listen to podcasts. So remember that healthy looks different on everybody. Have a great day.
Thank you so much. Bye, honey.